start with here.
So do you want to officially call the meeting to order?
Yeah, it's 11:14, and so we're officially calling the meeting to order. So just really quickly, recycling is suspended due to the public health crisis, and maybe Mike could say a few words about the services that are up and running at the transfer station now.
Sure. Yeah, I didn't want to take up too much time at the emergency meeting, but I figured this would be a good chance. So basically, a short rundown of what we did. Initially, everything was shut down as it is now for a day, and we closed early to try to figure out the best course of action. We came up with the idea to try to do a single stream program. Those bins that we had put out, they have more places to dump into, more places to be. It would take up parking spots, which should help with social distancing. The problem that we didn't foresee was just the amount of people that were coming in and the amount of product. And those bins were filling up far quicker than we had hoped for. In addition to the way we were transferring that into another trailer, those trailers weren't waterproof. And so the frequency we were having to dump the bins out, if it rained, it would be unmarketable. There was also parking issues. It ended up, it was worth a try, but it wasn't feasible in the end. So sadly, we couldn't to do that anymore. There's just no way to run those compactors right now and promote social distance and have the staff safe and the users. So unfortunately, we had to shut that all down. The same goes for the rest of the facility. We're a small staff, and it's just impossible to get out and monitor all those areas, in addition to trying to decrease the amount of trips coming to the transfer station to go along with the stay-at-home advisories and all of that stuff. So basically, the way we looked at it was, what we have to do, our main mission at the transfer station is to remove solid waste from the town. That's the most important job that we have. And we have to continue to do that and continue to have a staff that's able to do that. So, you don't really need to drop off an air conditioner right now, or a propane tank, or even yard waste for that matter, sadly. That being said, that's why we're doing what we're doing right now. As far as the recycling goes, if it's clean and dry, as it's always supposed to be, it's harmless. It can be stored, but obviously everyone's situation is different, and I understand if you don't have any room to do that, which is why we're allowing people, if they have to throw it in the trash. To Helen's question at the meeting about the actual tonnage, yeah, we are filling the trailers faster, but it's not going to be a huge surge in the amount of trailers that we have to remove. It's also hard to tell because I've got a lot of visitors here that we didn't have a few weeks ago. So whether or not it's the recycling causing the increase or just the amount of people, it's hard to say. So all that said out of the way, I am thinking about this day and night, trying to figure out ways to reestablish services. So we do have an ash bucket out for ash from wood stoves, and we do have the marine debris bin at the harbor. That'll be there till at least Friday, but I really don't see why we couldn't continue that type of a program. People with horses, I know there's only maybe 4 of them that I see, and maybe a few more. They can call me, have horse manure that they need to drop off, and we'll work something out with them, because that's kind of a health issue. But everything else, we're looking at other options every day. I'm in contact with almost all the other transfer stations very frequently to see what they're doing, why, and how they're able to do it, and if the infrastructure is different or any of that stuff. So we're working on this daily, but that's where we're at right now. I've heard that the next 2 weeks are going to be the most crucial for this COVID virus as far as staying home goes. So the way we're running the transfer station now maximizes that. It decreases the users, and there's only 6 parking spots available. So there's never more than about 8 cars in there at one time, as opposed to the dozens that could be if the whole place was open.
Right.
So that's what I've got for right now in regards to that.
I just had a thought about going forward in the future, and this is going to be, I think, a longer and drawn out process. It's not all of a sudden just going to magically disappear. So there's going to have to be a lot of planning going forward. And one thought is to have maybe neighborhood drop-off points or something like that. I don't know if the haulers are still picking up, I guess they're still picking up curbside, but maybe there could be collection points before the transfer station is fully opened for certain materials. Something to think about.
I mean, yeah, I'm open to possibilities. There's a lot of logistics with that. A lot of the things that we do have shut down have alternatives. You can bring brush to places like Murphy Nickerson, demolition to Paul Daniels. Even if you had metal, you can bring that to S&J. Contractors, because I think people that have this stuff, just homeowners, I don't, I wouldn't want to promote them going out any more than they have to right now.
Yeah. The what on that call, a person mentioned the disposal of gloves. A lot of people are wearing gloves and then just dropping them as soon as they get to their car. They'd throw them on the ground. So maybe there could be some sort of signs, maybe even sidewalk signs, chalk signs, things like that that might catch a person's eye.
Yeah, I will say, so most of my experience has been that signs aren't that great. However, I will say this: I put the single stream recycling sign out and the grease board with why we're doing what we're doing. I was very impressed about how many people read that and understood it and did what they had to do. So yeah, I'm all for that. I can probably work with Jay on something like that. Kind of disheartening that people just throw their gloves on the ground.
Yeah, it's happening all over. You see them, and eventually they'll end up in the storm drains and in the ocean, and we don't want that either.
Yeah.
But if there could be even, I know that at the Spirit Shop in Wellfleet Center, they have a little cardboard box, so they want you to put your used gloves in there for, after you visited the store. So that's maybe a thing that could be recommended to some of the other places that people visit. Post office, things like that.
I think one of the main points, I know that the companies that do the curbside collection, they usually have some type of mechanical way to tip those carts, which eliminates a lot of the contact. Whereas right now we don't. It's literally someone pulling a bag out of a can, tying it up, and throwing it in the truck.
Yeah.
So maybe we can work with one of those companies on that. One other thing I'm really trying to look into doing somehow is getting people leaf compost for their gardens. I think it's really important. Anybody that has a garden that wants to garden, I think it's a great idea right now to avoid going to the store. I just haven't figured out a way to distribute that type of leaf compost yet. What I don't want is a place where people congregate or their excuse to come out and try to get to the facility. So, but that's the thing I'm working on right now, in addition to everything else.
That sounds really great. I'm sure people would love to get their hands on that.
Yeah.
Get outside.
Daya, did you want to say something? Go right ahead.
It has to do with rubber gloves, and I started it in rehab because of contagion, and they were throwing 20 gloves out right there in the bucket. And what I started to do with those, just thin rubber gloves that we all can get a hold of, is I would wash my hands with the gloves on, dry them, they were my hands, and pull the gloves off and hang them there, and they're all dried. So we can reuse our rubber gloves. We really can, and it works well. It's as well as cleaning I told the one doctor I kept seeing and the nurses, and they thought I was brilliant. I mean, really. And people don't realize that I took the food handlers course when I opened the B&B. They tested us for washing our hands, sprayed clear stuff on our hands, said, go wash them, dry them, come back. We stuck our hands under a light and parts of the hand glowed where the stuff still was. Thumbs and heel of hand. The water drips as we wash. People wash their hands often with their thumbs up in the air. We all failed. There were 14 of us.
Wow.
So washing our thumbs and the heel of the hand, that's another thing about the hands. But those gloves, they can be reused. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Jaya. Mike, do you have any other items you want to bring up? I think there'll be more as the agenda goes on too.
Yeah, I would say one other thing in regards to why other towns do certain things or don't do certain things right now. Again, I've been in contact with pretty much all of them
Mhm.
throughout the crisis, and it has to do with infrastructure. And I'll just point to Eastham as an example because that's where I live and I've worked there as well. They have very large hoppers into their recycling compactors. They don't need to be run constantly. And so that alone is different than what we have in Wellfleet. Our machines need to be run all the time. There's no capacity, as you all know. So there's things like that as to why certain towns do certain things.
Mhm.
I know Orleans has set up sawhorses, but their recycling area isn't, exactly right in the front of our scale house like ours is. There's different things like that. So when questions come up as to why or why we can't do yard waste or brush, if I open up that part of the dump, history shows us that they'll be all over the place. As I saw the first week when we had started to limit services, and we found all manner of things everywhere, and it's impossible to keep up on. And as much as there's 3 of us at the transfer station, but in a sense, we're all one DPW department. There's a lot of crossover. And so if any number of us end up having to stay home for any reason, that limits services by a large percentage with the small group that we have. So we're doing everything we can to make sure that our critical mission here, which is solid waste out of Wellfleet, for all costs, continues to operate.
Mhm. Yeah, one of the things I miss most is composting, using the composting bucket there at the transfer station. And I know Helen mentioned this in the call earlier, that she's been just holding on to her clean recyclable containers for future date.
Yeah, and this changes every day. I mean, when we started this, the governor was talking about April 7th.
Mhm.
And so now here we are even beyond that. And so things might need to be adjusted based on any number of things.
Yeah.
My goal is to get the place open, or at least part of it open, whatever I can do as quickly as possible, as long as it means that the users and the staff are going to be safe and it's worth it.
Yeah, there'd have to be limited number of people out in at a time, and I'm sure there's ways to do that, but you have to, it'll take a lot of planning. Good, well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Now,
Thanks, Mike.
let's see, do you want me to do a screen share for the agenda or just read the items?
Well, I have a hard copy, and I'm taking minutes, so
Okay,
I'm
thanks.
good.
The next thing we have is the Massachusetts, a temporary ban on reusable bags. So I've been to a couple of markets, the Marketplace in Wellfleet and Friends, and they're using paper bags. They won't allow you in with the reusable bag. So that's what's necessary now. And I just hope that, plastic is allowed, plastic bags. So I'm hoping that people aren't going to switch over to those, and all the work that we've done to keep plastic out of the environment, that's a real concern. So hopefully we'll be able to go back to reusable bags. I think the science on the virus lingering on cloth is maybe even less than, it's on plastic, it's worse than on cloth from what I've read.
That's what I keep reading. Consistently, I
But for
keep
now,
reading.
we're just gonna follow the rules here but just be ready to, I think, promote reusables again when the time comes.
Well,
Lydia,
the stores will be
thanks for
switching
sharing
back.
that.
Oh wait, who is that?
That's Courtney. Sorry, I was just listening, and thank you for sharing that. I wasn't aware that was a prohibition now, so I will find information from the state and put it on the town website.
Yeah.
And send it to Hillary. That's really disheartening
Mhm.
because, like you said, you guys have all worked so hard to ban plastic bags, and I personally, I would rather use my reusable bags because I know where they've been, whereas those brown paper bags and plastic bags have been sitting in the grocery stores for a long time. So thanks for sharing that update, and I will certainly put that out to the town and on the Facebook pages so people are aware of that.
Yeah, I think it's to protect the staff at the markets and things. That I think that they were concerned, and
Yeah.
you can see why.
And the workers, and the workers in the
Yeah.
markets that might be bag.
Right. I do self-checkout, so I don't come in contact with anybody, but I
Yeah.
totally see the concern. So I will find the update from the state and put that on the website so people know.
Okay, sounds good, Courtney. Thank you.
Just as a data point, we had deliveries from friends. They continued to use paper and Stop and Shop, and they switched back to plastic.
Stop and
haven't
Shop
been-
switch.
Yeah, I haven't been in a Stop and Shop store, but I'm sure they're doing plastic again,
Yeah,
just from a cost standpoint.
all right.
I did want to mention one thing, Mike, about I didn't actually. I don't remember exactly what your website says about recyclables. I mean, you don't recommend, you give them the option of putting them in with their solid waste, but you also mentioned that they can keep them aside, their recyclables, to store them up. Is that true?
Yeah, I believe the website currently says that we're able to hold on to them.
Right.
But if they come
That's
in,
what I thought.
yeah, they say they absolutely can't, then we allow them to dispose them just to get it out of
Right.
the house. And again, that website might be updated, who knows, because that was put up there when we were still looking at April 7th as a possible, end of the whole
Right.
thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So obviously, as the weeks go on, people's stuff is going to accumulate. I know my stuff has.
Yeah.
So we're going to figure something out. But for the time being, it's just a means to get rid of it.
Mhm.
Because again, that's the main goal here, is just to remove trash from Wellfleet.
Right.
Good. Right. The mass bottle deposit redemption is also suspended. So fizzy drinks like beer bottles, glass and plastic carbonated beverage bottles that usually have a 5 cent deposit on it. There's that's been suspended. So all of those bottles, you got to hold on to those too. Hopefully
Does that
one
mean
day-
does that mean that stores are not
They're not
accepting?
accepting them.
Okay.
No. Yeah, they can't. They're not really not allowed to. That's
Okay.
another thing where point of contact and that kind of for that
Right.
reason.
Mhm.
But these are things that we have to watch and make sure they don't disappear. However, with the plastic, we know that very little of that is actually recycled. With the glass, Sakali and the Wellfleet DPW has gotten the processed glass aggregate program going, where they collect the glass bottles and turn it into construction materials, kind of gravel. But hopefully that'll going forward, one day that'll come back. Let's hope.
Yeah, none of these measures,
Mhm.
I can see, as far as my operations go, we're going to go back to everything that we've done before. I don't see any reason we wouldn't. I will say, though, a lot of things are being looked at in regards to, if this ever happens again, trying to plan for any infrastructure that we build to try to mitigate the problems that we're seeing now,
Right.
whether that's building a big hopper for recycling or changing the way factors are. These thoughts are coming up. Whereas, we were worried about the recycling markets last year. Now we're just worried about getting rid of product any way we can.
Yeah.
So there's potential for stuff being changed in the future, but only in a positive way.
I think you're right. I think also maybe this notion of refilling rather than disposing all the time, that should really, especially since infrastructure is going to be built, I think, I don't know crystal ball here, but
Yeah. Just a comment on the recycling too. We all know what's recyclable and what's not at this point, but everyone else knows too that how many tissues do you see in the mixed paper still to this day, and how many of those water bottles or any other containers that you drink out of or that end up in the plastic have just left someone's mouth. It's impossible to say. And at the end of the day, when we change those compactors out, there's a good amount of spillage that we have to deal with picking up. And so that's another hazard for the staff, and also just the material in the machine, because there's no hopper on those things. When you dump your stuff in there, you're very close contact to all that as well.
Right.
Yeah. That's maybe where the Department of Environmental Protection or the EPA can have some impact there on the science of that, and the health agent as well. So personal best practices in waste reduction, like what are you guys doing at home to, are you storing up your recyclables? Are you doing anything creative with them? Are you, I mean, when I go to the store, I try and find things that don't have much packaging because that way I don't have to deal with the packaging at the end. And I know a lot of the local markets and local farmers are, they're delivering. If you look at the Sustainable Cape website, there's a whole list of local farmers where the packaging might be kind of minimal.
Thank you for sending that that link to Sustainable Cape. That looks like a really interesting option to be able to go directly to wholesalers.
I think a lot of those local farmers are doing, it's good for their business, I think, especially greens and vegetables, but we have to think about all the shellfishermen and women and
Yeah.
all the seafood. Local seafood would be great to be able to buy more of that.
Yeah.
That's kind of the local demand for local food.
Have you seen the Facebook ads for, there's a lot of, I know Cape Tip, Holbrook Oyster, I think they're doing deliveries.
That's really
Yeah,
great.
they are.
Mm.
We've been eating more oysters to do our part.
Yeah, I have a question. Being I've been away so long, I never got a new shellfish permit for the year. And even though I couldn't go out, we could get one and Jeff would go out and eat them, but they're really high in zinc and iron, and I've been anemic for so many months that I could really use more iron. So oysters, where at this point town hall is closed, where would I get, would a person get?
How'd you get a shellfish permit? Well, they could probably mail you one.
I think that information is on the town website as well.
Yeah, I can answer that actually. It is on the town website. We're asking that you print out an application and mail it in with the check. And if you don't have a printer, then you can call town hall and we'll work with you over the phone to fill out the application that way. But if you had one last year, if you had one last year, then I would just call town hall. Jean McLaughlin is there today and I'm in the office tomorrow. And we can do it over the phone and then you can just drop a check at town hall.
Well, that would be fantastic. You can go in the building though. See, we're really isolating because I still might be fairly vulnerable, and I'm not going for a blood test, but I feel that I still am. That said, Jeff is only going to the post office unless he has to go somewhere else, because wherever he goes, he brings it in the house. He'll take his clothes off, put them right in the washer. I'm not going back to another hospital. So is there any other way? I guess I could send a check to town hall.
Yeah, you can mail the check in and along with your application, or if you don't have a printer, like I said, call us and we can probably just mail you the application or the permit back itself if that's easy.
So it'd be mailing it out, then you'd mail me my
your permit after. Yep.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me the time to get that info. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Great. All right.
As far as best practices go,
Yeah.
I'm definitely collecting, and unfortunately we're having groceries delivered as much as we can, so I don't have, can't select things that aren't heavily packaged. I know there are a couple of produce and dairy and wholesalers that are still delivering, so I'm kind of trying to rely on them.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess going to a farm is a nice idea too. Or maybe some farms are delivering, I don't know.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are delivering, and then there's also curbside pickup and drop off kind of situations, I think.
Yeah.
There are markets that are delivering. We're getting fresh produce from a market in Port, and they come once a week. And we really don't need it once a week now. We've got kale in our garden too. We still aren't buying many packaged things because I guess we're making our own breads, and a lot of people are. Yeah,
I guess there's shortages of some flour in some places. I guess a lot of people are making.
I'll tell you, we ordered from a place called Hayden Mills in Arizona. Everything we buy now is going to be expensive, but it seems like we couldn't find good flour here, you know,
Yeah.
organic.
I thought I might share the screen of the Sustainable Cape website, Courtney.
That was-
Should I just choose the share screen
That
option
was
on the
great.
bottom?
Yeah, you should be able to do that.
Okay, let's see. Posting disabled, screen sharing.
Okay, I'll do it now. It was just because of that weird hacking thing, so I'll
Yeah.
see if you can share it now.
Okay, let's see. Uh, share screen. Oh, here it is. Okay.
Perfect.
So you can see the produce, meat, eggs, cheese, and seafood, all local, all Cape Cod based.
Mhm.
So there's a lot there, and that's sustainablecape.org.
Yeah, I really appreciate you doing that. Yeah.
That's
a
great.
Good thing. So
Yeah,
I'll
it
just
helps
stop the
them.
screen share on that. And back to the agenda, let's see. We have local demand for local food.
I just read mine, I had it in my head, but I don't remember the order.
um, notes on some of you might have seen on TV last week a PBS Frontline documentary called Plastic Wars, and thank you, Christine, for that email on that. That's it's a very good documentary, an hour long. I think it was maybe a little longer.
Is that recent? When I saw it was put out, I have it in my queue.
Yeah, it's very
I hope
recent.
it's pretty recent.
Yeah,
Good.
it was on last week, and it's
Oh,
available for
good.
screening.
Yeah,
Also.
I've got it. It'll be
But
my
it-
evening.
It was pretty horrifying, the intent and the success of the plastic manufacturers' marketing to convince people to accept and consume more plastic. And now that another wave of that is starting as they're losing market share from oil and gas with renewables and climate change measures. They're looking at plastic as the profits of the future and hoping for a big surge.
And what hospitals do and rehab places do, hospitals need plastic tubing. Okay, but it's amazing when you're in there and you just see somebody might have one of those gloves on even. Pick up one thing, do one thing, then it goes in the garbage. Anyway,
Yeah, I think for this documentary, it's definitely worth watching. As Christine said, they're also tooling up. They're building new plastic plants to produce, even more plastic than before. And they're urging recycling, but it's really, in a way, I hate to think of it, but it's false advertising because so little of it is actually getting recycled or turned into other things. And they do promise that it's going to change, but they promised that 20 years ago and 20 years before that. So it's a real concern. And maybe we have to look more at producer responsibility and returning it to the producers for them to deal with rather than municipalities having to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
They do that in Germany, I think.
Something, it's a big deal, and
Yeah.
it's a challenge for sure.
We should just all move to Germany where they do things right.
Yeah.
And,
They'll unpack things for you before you leave the store and be responsible. The store will be responsible then for the packaging. Yeah.
Okay, so we recommend that the community watch that Plastic Wars on PBS. You can find it on the PBS.org.
I'll put that in the minutes, the link.
Okay. Maybe when things, we could all watch it together someday.
Mm-hmm.
The next is number 2. This is the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. That's on April 22nd coming up. And we were going to have a nice big beach cleanup on the weekend, April 25th, but that's been canceled. The Friends of the Herring River, the World Fleet Conservation Trust and others were planning that, Shellfish Advisory Board and others. Right now, it looks like they're looking at the fall when there's the usual coast sweep events, and I think in September through November, something like that. So but individuals can, of course, work for the environment anytime. So you can do something in your own yard or write letters to your representatives. All kinds of things you can do that don't require being, in a group. So I urge people to do something on April 22nd and that weekend instead of this beach cleanup that we were all hoping to do.
I have a thought.
Mm-hmm. Great.
So with all this recycling that we're trying to store, this would be an interesting kind of measure. So set a date as to when you've started storing all this stuff, and then when this is all over, if people got it, take a picture,
Ooh.
figure out the amount of time, and see, a visual of how much stuff you actually have just packaging.
Right, that is a good idea. Let's do that.
Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
good idea. Yeah.
I
Maybe
can
we
set
can
it
have
out on
a
the tarp in the
competition
yard.
for the smallest pile.
Yeah.
Or have some type of control measure where you don't try anything different, and this is what you have.
Mhm.
This is
Right,
an eye-opening experience.
kind of a day in the life or months in the life
Yeah.
of a packaging.
Nice
Good.
idea. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah. Well,
Sometimes
definitely.
I have a lucky thought.
Yeah.
I'm storing it in the sunroom that I'm in now, and the pile is definitely growing. Pretty soon it'll take over the room.
Right.
Hopefully a lot of my yogurt tubs are they have plants in them right now. So.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one. Put the holes in the bottom.
Repurposing your stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's smart. Then we have updates on recent projects like the status of the regional plastic water bottle ban, the water refill stations, cooperative purchasing. Christine, do you want to speak to those?
Yeah, I have really not been on cooperative purchasing is the only thing that I've really been working on.
Mhm.
So that is the Cape Care for the Cape and Islands summit. There have been, well, the third one was going to be in April, and there are working groups on different aspects, beach cleanup, marketing, blah, blah, blah. The one I'm working on is to work with the provider Cape-wide cooperative purchasing for more sustainable disposable products, and also to work on sources for reusables and try to promote restaurants and food service places over to using reusables wherever possible. So we had a conference call and made some decisions based on research. The biggest thing that we've been finding is the prevalence of PFAS, furan poly something or other fluoride
Fluorocarbon.
in almost all
Right.
paper products, tableware products. I mean, if it has a moisture barrier and it doesn't have a lining, then it's treated with these chemicals, which are very hazardous, and they're prevalent in just about everything. There's the only thing that's on EPA's radar is drinking water PFAS. They're starting to test for and be concerned about, but it's everywhere. So there are some sources that recommend products that are not treated, but that's the biggest challenge. Is we don't want to offer any products that are toxic.
Mhm.
So that's making it more of a challenge to find things that don't have that treatment. And we're also looking for unbleached products, and we're trying to limit PLA. So I've been doing a lot of the research. There's another person who works at Hui that is helping now, which is great because it's part of her job on Sea Grant. So she's helping also with the research. And our goal is in about a month to have a preliminary list of recommendations that we'll put out in an electronic sort of buying guide, and then that'll be sent out to chambers and businesses on the Cape.
Great. That's really good.
So the things that I haven't been working on is the plastic water bottle ban, sustainable practices. Madhavi's group has been, continuing to do letter writing and other promotion for it. That's just something that we don't really have a plan on what to do. So that's kind of sitting on the back burner. The water refill stations. So I have not been in touch with the harbor master about when they're going to put theirs out there, when they're going to install the unit that they have sitting in their garage. I would like to do that because it'd be great if we could have it done, although they probably don't want to turn it on until after all this is over, but it would be maybe a good time. Things are slower. And then as far as the town hall water refill station, Lydia and I met with DPW and concluded that the spot at the base of the staircase on the Hatches parking lot side of town hall is the only location that will work. And the price tag for the installation, we're about $2,000 short. So that's where we are right now. Is we were going to reach out to SPAT again, who donated the $2,000 for the cost of the equipment. Michelle said, put a proposal out to the board, and then the other thing we were going to do was do the same with the water commissioners, because they had expressed some interest in perhaps helping with funding before, but their meeting was canceled due to this, and their last meeting was about how to learn how to use Zoom, and we haven't heard yet about another meeting. Have you heard anything, Lydia?
No, I haven't. Sorry.
Okay. So things are kind of, on the back burner.
Yeah, I had a thought about the water station and hand washing in the future and the disposable paper towels and things like that. I know that Gabrielle brought this up when they were talking about redoing the bathroom at the library, but rather than having the paper towels, maybe having an air drying machine at town buildings could be a more sanitary way of drying hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be
Do
good.
any of them have them now? I have no idea.
I don't think there are any in, I know they're not at the library and at town hall, I don't believe so. Mike, do you know if there are any air drying?
I don't think there's any air drying at the DPW garage, and we certainly don't have any at the transfer station.
There's none at town hall either.
Right, that might be also you might save some money on the paper towels. I mean, you're using electricity, so that's a trade-off, but that's a thought for the future maybe. While they're thinking about the town infrastructure things. So, yeah, same, also on the agenda is alternatives to plastic aquaculture equipment. I haven't checked in with the Shellfish Advisory Board or with the Shellfish Constable, but I'm sure that they're all working out there, and I'm sure it's on their minds.
Kind of not on anybody's mind right now, other than just dealing with the current crisis, including us.
Yeah, that's true. So the next thing is Boomerang Bags volunteers sewing face masks and face coverings and things. I spoke with Erica Gorin, well, actually texted this morning with Erica, and initially she was making masks for her family and friends, and she's stepped it up and has made over 100 to give to a local nursing home.
Wow.
And there's people all over the Cape that are doing this. She had some good advice about what kind of cloth to use. You might want to use a more sturdy cloth for the outside and a thinner cloth for the inside. It helps with knowing which way is the front when you're taking it off. And she said there's a woman, Kaylin Davis, who has a Facebook page who's Cape Mask Makers, and they've been putting people together with materials and delivering masks and working hard on that. I think it might be a private Facebook page, I'm not sure. But that's something to look into in the future. I know that it's probably on the Wellfleet community space, there's discussion of it as well. if people want material, then they could certainly get in touch with the Wellfleet Recycling Committee at wellfleetrecycles.org, and
Do we
we
have
could try.
material? Because I have a material shortage. I've been evaluating different patterns. And my big problem is having enough cotton. They recommend using cotton, and I finally found some old curtains that's
Right.
cotton.
Yeah.
Everything else has some polyester. Most things have polyester in them. So.
Yeah, apparently, Erica has access to some cloth, so
Okay.
I mean, you could, certainly
I'll
email
reach out to her
directly
then.
or email us, and we can put you in touch.
Okay.
And one thing she said about some people have been putting a paper towel between the two layers of the mask. She said if you do that, you should make a pocket for it so you can
Right.
take it out, because these masks have to be very washable. Obviously, you're gonna wash them, after every 1 or 2 uses.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on how long you're wearing it for. And so she said, yeah, if you're going to insert a piece of paper towel, please make a pocket for it so you can take it out and then wash the mask.
Coffee filters work well for that too.
Yeah, I saw
I've seen
that
some
today.
patterns recommend that.
The CDC has a whole page on Centers for Disease Control has a whole page with both sewn masks and ones you don't need to sew.
I tried their T-shirt suggestion, but I didn't think about, well, they say to make it 7 inches wide, so I ended up with a T-shirt mask that would cover my whole face. So, you do have to bring a little
Right. The trial and error, I guess.
intelligence to it. I just followed the directions about what the heck do I do with this? Put it on an elephant.
I was on Main Street the other day, and it was great. I saw 2 people, and one a friend drove by in a pickup truck. He had one on, and then another person was doing some work on his building. He had one on.
Mm-hmm.
So that was great to see.
Yeah.
I guess there are tons of requests for more masks. I asked her about kid-sized ones too, which might be a thought for the future. Should our kids wearing them? And is there a need for smaller size ones for kids?
Mm.
So, yeah. What else have we got here? Priorities for spring and summer. Well, I mean, the main priority is to be safe and
Yes.
non-social distancing and yeah. Do you have some thoughts on that? I mean, it's gonna be like 1 week at a time, basically.
Yeah, definitely. Even the people who have their fingers on the pulse,
Mm-hmm.
they say the pulse keeps changing because this is all new. They're always discovering something.
Yeah.
Every day. Even the presumptions get disproven.
Mm-hmm.
I know my personal priorities is going to be expanding my gardens and trying
We
to
are already, yeah, we are.
locally sourced meat for sure.
Uh-huh.
So I'm hoping, maybe that'll change and actually help our economy.
Mm-hmm.
That's great, Mike. Yeah, I know, that's inspiring. I would love to.
I think a lot of people are eating things from places they never did before, and I think that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and maybe rain barrels, things like that, to collect water. Maybe that's a thing that we can help with in the future.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's I know some places that's a Board of Health issue, but I don't know about.
Okay.
Well, of course, outdoor showers are illegal too, right?
Are they really?
That can't be. Right.
Right.
So yeah, as far as next meetings go, do you want to, it would be May 5th. That would be our
Sounds good.
next meeting. Maybe there's some things we could put together for Earth Day, like that Mike's idea of the,
The start date of checking out
Yeah.
how much.
that's right, the kind of visual of all your
Yeah.
recyclables that you're storing.
I thought we did that quite some time ago with this.
Yeah, we did that after one of the big, actually the last beach cleanup, the coast sweep, we did
Yeah.
sorted everything and we
But
recycled
we
what we
forget
could.
the good things we've done, so this is be reminded. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, a
It
personal
really is.
kind of personal diary or personal
Yes.
visual of all this stuff that we've been collecting over these months.
Yeah.
And so maybe we could make a page that could be added to the website or something like that, or shared in another way. Yes.
I have a thought. Encourage people to realize it's not so hard to make your own yogurt,
Mhm.
isn't? And so much for a lot of people is yogurt containers. That
Good point.
if maybe on the site we could put, if you want to be adventurous, you got time on your hands. This is what you do: just this temp, lower it, put the culture in, and let it sit for a few hours. Maybe just to give people an idea that it's not such a big thing by putting the instructions of making your own yogurt.
Mhm. We could we have a website, we could put it on ours, wellfleetrecycles.org.
Yeah, I think it might be helpful, even if just a handful of people do it. They'll talk about it to other people most likely and
Right.
help on that end. It's something. Those
Sounds good.
yogurt containers.
Yeah, I wish I could get my yogurt in 5-gallon tubs. That'd be a lot easier.
Well, yeah, but honestly, well, Jeff makes it all summer for the B&B.
Mhm.
And, but once you do, and when I taught cheese making, so many people thought yogurt was really a complex thing. And I had one class on it and they were astonished.
Mhm.
Soon started making their own yogurt. I don't know if they've continued, but so just, one more thing.
Maybe that's your Earth Day project, Jaya, as a YouTube instructional video.
Mhm. Yeah.
Oh,
There you go.
wow, I can learn how to be techie with that. I'm going to write that down as an idea.
That's a good idea.
Not only that, Jaya, Mia has offered to do PSAs and things for anybody. I'm sure, well, things town related, but maybe
Well,
she
that
can-
could be in a sense. Well, could stretch it.
well, we could put other things in it too. Keep thinking along those lines.
Yeah.
Mike, I have a question about that leaf mulch you were talking about. Is that chopped up leaves or how is that?
Oh,
what's it
it's
like?
just that compost that I've put out for a few years now. It's made out of a leaf pile.
Mhm. Right.
And the only thing I do with it is I turn it over several times a year and run it through kind of a screen that I have that gets a lot of the debris out. And people take it. They took, I think, over 200 yards of it last year, which is an entire windrow of one of those leaf piles.
Wow, that's great.
That's awesome.
But I want to figure out a way to get that out there safely and effectively, because I think people that want to garden should be able to, and it's something one of the little things that I can do to try to help. So I'm working on that for sure.
Right.
Well,
And
it's
the
certainly-
manure pile too, is that, I know that I'm not a great gardener, but I think it's good if it's been sitting for a while. Is that-
Yeah, I started that. We used to just mix the manure with the leaves,
Mhm.
but last year I started collecting it separately, and I turned it over as well. And I've got a pile. I don't even know how big it is at this point, but of compost and manure. And so all this new stuff I've been receiving prior to this whole thing, was separated from that, and I was going to put that out as well.
Oh, I see, great.
So, and all this stuff, I only have so much of it. Once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to figure out a way to do that.
Well, one thing maybe you could do sort of by appointments, like if people want some, they would sign up for a slot. So you just have like one person coming at a time. But that would
Yeah.
take a lot of oversight.
For that, or maybe just even multiple drop-offs around town so people don't have to travel so far, because
Oh,
I think everything that I've been hearing is saying that these 2 weeks is going to be crucial, and I don't want to encourage anyone to go out for things that aren't really necessary.
Right.
Right. Yeah, this would be down the road, maybe sometime in the summer or something. I mean, who knows when it'll be, but we're all gonna hang tight until it's
Yeah.
announced.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still, people, and again, everyone's situation is different, but they come in sometimes every day with like a little tiny bag, and it's, I wouldn't do that. I would,
Yeah.
I would stay as much as I could. So Yeah, we have to think about people that way too, because it's just anyone else that's there that might be trying to save up now is in the same place they are and all that. So
Right.
Right.
Mike, one thing I wanted to ask is that I'm looking for, I don't have any bags other than pay-as-you-throw bags. So things like that are hard to recycle, like birdseed bags that have that layer of plastic. Can you just put your trash in that and bring it?
yeah, the Board of Health suspended the pay-as-you-throw program till at least
Right.
April. And so I would certainly appreciate anything, whether it's trash or if you absolutely have to get rid of recycling, if it's that, to be put in some type of bag because it keeps it cleaner. It doesn't blow around.
Mhm.
It helps in all regards with that
Okay.
trailer.
Mhm.
Alrighty.
Good. All right, on the agenda that I sent out and that's posted on the town website, there are 2 links that have links to the mass.gov, so the state website, that talk about the bottle redemption suspension and the grocery store best practices. So those are, if you want to read more about those are there.
Great.
And,
Thank you, Lydia.
Sure. And so then May 5th will be our next meeting, and Christine will chair that one. So that's
Okay. And I'll get out I have I didn't do the minutes from the last meeting, so I'll catch up with that in this one and get those
all
out.
right. That sounds great. And I think
Thank you, Mike, for
you, Mike.
everything you're
Yeah.
doing. You're doing a
Thank
good
Thank you
job.
very much.
Yeah, thank you to Chris too for putting that stuff on social media for me. I'm not a social media guy, so
Not us either. We're very happy to have Chris.
Yeah, Chris Wisniewski's been doing the Instagram and Facebook for the recycling committee.
Yeah, I don't do
Is
Facebook.
Lonnie on the call? I mean, is she called
She
in?
was on earlier, but then not. So I
Okay.
don't know if it was she couldn't hear things or what. It's a little tricky sometimes.
Yeah, okay.
I find
Thank
like
you very
with
much,
Zoom,
everyone.
if you're not connecting, that you sign out and then sign back in. That often helps.
Mm,
It's
mm.
just a note. All right.
All
take
right.
care.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, take care. All the
Okay,
best.
so meeting adjourned at 12:06, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
12:07. And thanks, Courtney.
Yep, take
Thank
care,
you,
everybody.
Courtney. Bye-bye. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
All the
Bye.
best.